United Way of Lake County strives to impact lives each and every day right here in Lake County. We support and help fund countless local programs and nonprofits that aid our residents in need.
911, state your emergency.
I need your help really quick.
Okay, what address are you located at?
I'm at 8505 Garfield Road. Just get here quick. My boyfriend has beaten me up for the last time. I am sick of this and I need help.
Okay, we're going to get you some help. I need you to take a deep breath. What's your boyfriend's name?
Tim. I don't want to give his last name right now.
Okay, does he have any weapons on him?
He always, I think,
Okay.
threatened me with it before, and I'm sick of it. I just need somebody here.
Okay, there's an officer on the way. There's a couple officers there.
This year alone, Central Communications has fielded 1,000 calls for domestic violence from either a family member or a partner.
Research tells us that 1 in 4 women experience domestic violence on a national level. And our statistics here in Lake County show us that at least 58 persons per day experience domestic violence, and that half of all calls made to police are related to domestic violence situations.
Domestic violence knows no social, economic boundaries, no racial boundaries. Unfortunately, it happens in many families in our own communities.
One of the key points we'd like to make about domestic violence is it knows no prejudice. Domestic violence affects rich, poor, black, white, educated, really doesn't matter. A domestic violence situation is something that can happen anywhere at any time and comes in many forms. It's not just physical, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's mental. Many times domestic violence will affect not just children, but loved ones of the victims, their families, their friends, their co-workers.
Abusers have a way of just getting into your head and emotionally manipulating you and brainwashing you into centering your life around them.
I grew up in a house with domestic violence. I had a stepfather who was violent towards me and my siblings, as well as my mother. And this is from as young as I can remember. They got married before I was 2. So I don't remember a time in my childhood when I didn't deal with that.
People think if it would happen to someone that has a broken family or something like that, but my parents have been married almost 40 years. I have an amazing family. I was president of student council, captain of volleyball, and it happened to me.
Growing up, you learn in school, you learn from TV that these kind of things are not okay, but then you live with a family where nobody is doing anything to change it. So I grew up just accepting that as a part of my life, and the older I got and the more I went through school, the more I started to question, who can I talk to? Who can I ask for help?
One of the key points about domestic violence is knowing where to find help. The first place you want to start is calling 911.
Forbes House is a domestic violence shelter located in Lake County, Ohio. We are Lake County's only domestic violence shelter, and we provide a safe haven for those who are victimized by domestic violence. We provide services that help those in need of healing and new beginnings, new fresh beginnings to progress onto successful lives in a safe environment.
I wanted to give up, but I had a daughter to fight for, and for some reason I had this place, Forbes House. I felt at home instantly. I was completely a mess, but I am work in progress, and I like the changes I see in me. Forbes House was truly sent from heaven to help women like us.
We want to ensure that people in Lake County are well educated, that domestic violence lives in their communities. It is present here. And it doesn't matter if they're in some of the nicest houses in Concord or a small home at the north end of Paynesville Township.
I had one victim of domestic violence who came directly from Tri-Point Hospital. She had a cast on her leg. She was bruised and her arm was bandaged. She had bruises that I could see on her face and her shoulders, and she was frightened for her life.
It took a while for me to admit to myself that I was actually going through an abusive relationship. It gets to the point where, you know, you leave an abusive relationship on an average of 7 times before you leave for good, and at the same time, you're also in love with the person. So you sort of lose your own identity and you have to kind of answer to this person in every aspect of your life. Where are you? Who are you with? And kind of starts off with extreme jealousy, where in a way you almost think that that's cute that someone cares about you that much. But when it gets to the point where they're constantly questioning what you're doing or constantly questioning where you are, you kind of have to find it in yourself, like sort of look at yourself in the mirror and find the strength to leave.
Domestic violence isn't just a physical hit. It can be verbal, it can be mental. The perpetrator tries to exert control over the victim. Where are you going? When will you be back? How much money is in your wallet? The perpetrator tries to isolate the victim from family and friends.
It wasn't until I was a teenager and the violence towards me increased when I realized I needed to do something to get my family out of this situation.
Oftentimes in homes where there's domestic violence, the children take on roles of a parent because the parent that is the victim is unable to meet the child's needs.
I didn't know where to go. I more saw myself as trying to help my mom find someone to help her get out. So I pushed my mom to move out. I helped her find a place. I supported her in starting a new life. And for a long time, she wouldn't leave because she thought that was all she deserved and that is what life was and that was acceptable, and it wasn't.
Services we provide truly, truly change lives. I've met people who have such fear in their eyes and haven't laughed in years. And over the weeks and the months that they spend at our shelter, they're able to change their lives for the better and start laughing again. I just met a girl last week, her name's Susie, and she says she hasn't existed without being called stupid every day of her life. So just being at our place and able to relax, be truly safe, and build hope into the future is such a huge blessing.
What I'm so very proud of is that our services are free, thanks to the support of our community like you.
They need their stories to be heard, they need to find their voice, and we need to support that.
I have a client in particular that I had been working with many years ago that suffered from a severe mental illness, but also was in a relationship that had domestic violence involved. And one of the things that I recall is that she struggled with accessing services out of fear while she was involved with that relationship. But once she did, she was able to connect with several providers and really get to a place where she was able to leave the relationship.
I'm now seeing children of parents who were convicted of domestic violence 20 years ago in my court. And they're coming in with their partners or their spouses and committing domestic violence. So somewhere along the line, we didn't stop that.
It's important to point out that domestic abusers are not born, they are made.
Over 3 million children in homes just like these are witnesses to domestic violence, and of those children, 70% are most likely to be abusers in the future.
Speaking of children, I was walking up to a house on a violent domestic, and we could always tell how bad it was going to be by the number of calls, by how many neighbors were out, and if we could hear it while we're getting there. If there's furniture outside that came out through the window, that's a bad sign. In this case there was, and it was violent inside, and there was a little boy on the porch. And I remember him because he had the same shirt that my young son had on. And he was terrified out there, so I was going to try and just calm him down for a second before we went in. And as I reached for him to point to him, he reached to me and he asked me a question. He wanted me to do something. He asked me, "Would you shoot my daddy?"
We have some kids that love coming to school, not because they want to come and they're ready to learn, but because things aren't going so well at home.
One of the things we found very helpful is the Western Reserve Counseling Domestic Violence Anger Management classes.
Western Reserve is proud to join Beacon Health, Women's Safe, and Forbes House, and many other United Way funded agencies in support of our domestic violence crisis in Lake County.
Beacon Health is really privileged to partner with Women's Safe, Forbes House, and other agencies to help survivors of domestic violence. Our role in this is to help those with a severe mental illness to get the care they need to rebound from the violence and trauma they experienced in their life. That help may come through psychiatry and medication management, counseling, case management, support services, employment services, helping somebody find a job, and support groups.
This is several years ago, but one of the group members had mentioned that he had never been abused when he was a child. And one of the things that we talk about is how children who are exposed to domestic violence in their homes are more likely, 70% more likely, in fact, to become abusers themselves. And so he was saying that he didn't ever experience abuse as a child. And he then offered the example that when he did something that his father didn't like, that his father would hit him with a hammer, or with a board, or with whatever was at hand. And he said, but I was never abused.
The story that bothers me the most, the one that I've lived with ever since, and I know the other officers on the call have, is we were dispatched to a call of domestic violence. When we got there, what we found was a husband and wife who had been arguing, and the husband was choking his wife to the point where she was going to go unconscious. And their 2 young children were watching this. One of the children ran upstairs and retrieved a folding knife and came downstairs and actually stabbed his father. And knowing that that child has to live with that for the rest of his life is one of those things that stuck with me throughout my career. I'll never forget the look on his face.
And what I like to tell people is that what they're going through right now doesn't define them. That it doesn't mean that their whole rest of their lives they're going to be labeled as a victim or weak or broken or damaged or unable to advance in their careers. There's always going to be doors open for you. You just have to look for them or create them for yourself. But your past isn't your future or your legacy.
We know that domestic violence is serious, it's continual, it's hidden from many people, and the court is here to listen.
We can't do this alone. We don't charge a penny for our services at Women's Safe. People who come through the door are never turned away, and they live with us and they stay with us until they make a plan for their future.
This year's United Way motto is, change starts here, and it truly does.
Join the movement. Change starts with you.
Change starts here.
Change starts here.
Change starts here.
Change starts here.
Change starts here. Help us help others.